Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Friday, the show where we dive into the stories and experiences from people from all walks of life. Today, I have an amazing guest, Dan. He's all about helping people unlock their best selves in their mind and body. He believes in greatness is inside of all of us. Let's dive in and learn how we can all step up our game. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt.
No, I'm excited to have you on. And for the listeners who may not be familiar with your line of work yet, could you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so again, my name's Dan Hunt. I work within a lot of athletics and even the corporate athlete as well, helping them unleash and unlock and really maximize their potential at the end of the day. As you said, I believe greatness is within. And when you focus on the right things and you begin to align actions and be disciplined on those actions, then you step into that. And so I really like to lean into what I say, the physiology and the psychology and how those two things come together. And then also how those play into like flow states and peak performance and some of that. And when I talk about physiology, I really lean into not only individually stress responses and things like that, but I'm also talking about within groups, how are people connecting? Right? Like, and I'm sure you've experienced like traveling around when you get in with certain people, there's just a different connection there. And I think you can leverage that within teams for teams to really like unlock and be able to have that multiplication factor where it's not, 1 + 1 = 2. And on the stat sheets, like, okay, we got some skilled players here, but where it's like 1 + 1 = 10. And you're going, how in the world are they doing this? Right. And then for the individuals too, on the psychology part of it, it's like how are the things that you're thinking about, the way you're reacting and responding to emotions, like how are those driving the actions, and also diving into like how are emotions maybe leveraging you where you can be leveraging them. So I just kind of keep diving into that. I've been doing this work for almost 10 years now, former college coach, and then started doing this consulting thing and just fall in love with it, dude. You learn based on talking to people and just research that you're doing. You just learn every single day, and that's what I really enjoy about it.
No, I love that. It's so powerful. You you're so true. You surround yourself with some people, and you kind of turn into the same mindset as the other people you surround yourself with. I mean, and then the power of mindset is so powerful. Now, why do you believe greatness is inside of everyone?
Yeah, I think that one is just I believe in human potential. As you talked about like people's stories, my story goes back to when my grandfather got me into tennis. That was one of my primary sports. He always said, "Good, better, best. Never let it rest till the good is the better and the better is the best." And at the time, I had no idea. I'm 5, 6 years old, have no clue what he's teaching me. I'm like, okay, yep. All right, Gramps, just keep grinding, keep working, keep trying. And I didn't really embrace it until later on in life was like, holy cow, I didn't get any real formal training. Like I didn't have pros that were teaching me. I didn't have specialized coaches, but like I was above average player. Like I competed and I wasn't a great athlete. At the end of the day, I told people I wasn't smart enough to give up sometimes. And so I really have just adopted that. And the more that I've, interacted with people and asked questions and been able to really get to know people, it's like, your greatness might not be an athletic pursuit, but there is still greatness within you. Like there is still an inherent potential that when you uncover that and you take daily actions on it, it might not come out like that, but you can progress and develop and keep chasing that down. And I believe that's when you look back and you go, hey, how did I do that over the last 10 years? Or people go, what's different about you? And you're like, I don't know, man. I just keep going. So I don't know. I embrace that. And I think it really started with my grandfather just telling me, good, better, best. You never let it rest, man.
That's powerful. I mean, so many people never realize what they're capable of. And I want to go a little bit deeper with you. What is something significant from your childhood that shaped you into who you are today?
Yeah. I think one of the big things is, I'm 16, 17 years old, and on track to potentially playing college tennis. I'm doing pretty good. I'm going into my spring season, and I end up driving my dad's vehicle to school. And at the time, my dad worked for our local sheriff's department, and the drug dogs hit it. And I end up getting kicked out of school, even though I took a drug test, I was clean, and I had a choice there. Was like, either you're going to basically take the fall and protect your dad's honor, and like potentially keep my parents together, so on and so forth, or you're just going to out the whole thing, and you're probably still going to get kicked out of school, and this is still going to, and so I ended up just keeping my mouth shut. I took the 16 weeks off of school. And I would say that really kicked off, 5, 6, 7 years of a community in a town that I lived in, kind of sticking their nose up to me. A lot of teachers like, oh man, we don't. And I remember NHS, National Honor Society, wanting to be a part of that, and teachers going, we don't want kids like you, and me going at 17 years old, like, what is this? Who am I in this? And trying to figure out how do you keep moving through that, and to be honest with you, it was a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, a lot of accepting the way people viewed me as I'm a bad kid. I have no, like, what business do I have going to college? What business do I have trying to do this? Like, I'm exactly who they say I am, and so after living in that for so long, for me, my spirit, I think it was like, dude, this is not what you're made for, man. Like, there is something else. And I just felt this like turmoil, that I had to do something different. And I broke out of it, man. And there was definitely some great mentors, along the way. Like I said, my grandfather, obviously somebody that, instilled that mindset in me. And then after he passed away, my grandmother just being such a phenomenal mentor and connector, and just a place where like I could go to and just have great conversations with her, and I just started taking action. It was like, okay, what do I want in a year from now? And how do I start moving towards that? And I just kept swinging for the fences. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're 21 years old, and you're overseeing an entire tennis department at an athletic club, and the guy before me just left, and it like sat in my plate, in my lap, and I'm like, oh, okay. And now I'm running, I'm overseeing a department at 21 years old, probably around $800,000 a year in revenue, and I'm like, what am I like? Oh, this is a business, right? And so I'm like learning things, and then, asking for a raise, and like, no, can't do it. You don't have a college education. Okay, I'll go get that. Quit, and then went up to Fair State University, and just kept swinging for the fences. And you look back and you go, how in the world did I get here? And I just kept plugging along, man. And I really think that was something that for a season I said, man, this happened to me. Like, what the heck? I missed out on all this. But really what it produced was this. And I love this, right? I love this person. I love the work that I do. And so I wouldn't trade it for the world. I don't want to go back and relive it. But man, I know it happened for me. And I've figured out through that and many other experiences in life that you can leverage them for your benefit and for your forward progress.
That's deep and powerful at the same time. And like you're saying, just you got to keep moving forward no matter what they say. You got to keep on rocking every single day. I mean, you are just a definition of not giving up. I mean, it's remarkable how much you've been through. And it's always fascinating to hear the why behind everyone's passions, though. I mean, what made you want to help find the greatness within everyone?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Man, when you think of why, I think it's easy to just go this one thing. I think it was a lot, I think in the beginning in my, and to be honest, like immaturity, it was like, hey man, I got this chip on my shoulder. I'm proving all you wrong. Like you got me wrong. I'm proving you wrong. And I think that drove me for a long time. And then, in athletics and as a coach, it was like, yeah, see what I can do. Like, you counted me out, but look what I can do. I mean, there was definitely some like chip on my shoulder and immaturity. And there's days where it's like, yeah, watch this, but then, you have a child, man. And it's like, holy cow. Now I need to be that example for this kid, and now I have 3 boys. And so it's like, how do I instill these things in them and be the best version of myself so they have a great example? And they are growing up in embodying and learning and creating this moral fabric that they know who they are and they have a foundation to stand on, and they have a backbone. And then you start interacting and you hit a phase of life. And that's where I really caught fire, was like, how do I give this away to people? As people are like, man, there's something different about you. I don't think I'm special. I just never gave up. And I believe there's so much more that I'm going to do, but it's like, how do I give that to people? How do I encourage people? And then you start getting that energy and the excitement of like, holy cow, I'm helping these people out. Like, oh my gosh. And now you're getting excited because other people, you're seeing them chase down and you're breaking through things and they're doing things they never thought they could. And you're like, oh yeah, let's keep going, and you get excited for that, and I think that's where it's been really fun for me in the last 5 to 6 years is working with teams and doing different things where it's like, holy cow, man, look at this, and being able to step back and just see it happen. You're like, yeah, I think that's been really exciting to me. So I think the why shifts, the why changes. I think there's multiple pieces for it, but I think more than anything, even as I'm processing through this a little bit out loud, it's definitely, there's a sense of like honoring my grandfather too. He lived a life that I every single day often like hold myself to and go, hey, would he be proud? So there's definitely an element of that as well.
That's very powerful and so true. And growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when you push past your limits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I was actually talking to some coaches the other day about how we often say like, you got to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. You know what I mean? But we don't really dive into that. And then the thing behind it is that you have to know the sensation and the chaos that sometimes happens within your physiology and be able to create clarity with your focus in your mind to keep taking actions forward. And so, like, a lot of times we don't even realize there's opportunities everywhere for us to do this. And we go, and a lot of times we don't even realize that we're avoiding things, and so like over the last 5 years, a lot of that has been me intentionally doing things that scare the living heck out of me, something that happened a couple years ago. I always said, I'll never jump out of an airplane. Like, it's never going to happen. I won't do it. And then I was like, no, man, that's a limiting belief. Like, you physically can absolutely jump out of an airplane. Whether it's safe or not is a totally another topic, right? But you can physically do it. So what's holding you back, right? And how do you face that? And how do you lock in? And so, like, for me, I faced that, I think it was like 2.5, 3 years ago, where I just said, okay, I'm gonna make 3 pre-decisions, which is something I talk a lot about. Is like, making a pre-decision that you will do this no matter what, even before you start getting those feelings and that physiology shifting and that nervousness or whatever it is, that chaos. And so it was like, I'm going to 100% put on the gear. I'm going to 100% get on the plane, and I'm going to 100% step up to that line and step off when the green light comes on. And so once I put that gear on, it was like, all right, check. What's the next thing? All right, you're going to get on the plane, And there was definitely times where it was like, oh, but then there was a lot of moments where I was like, wow, this is incredible. Like, I'm in a plane. I'm over Lake Michigan. Like, oh my gosh, I've never seen Lake Michigan from this perspective, And then the green light goes, you're like, and you're like, oh, and you get up there and you're just like, all right, man, like this, now you're going to step off. You committed to it, and all these fears that you have of, all these terrible things that could happen or how it's going to feel. I just remember falling out of that plane and being like, this is the most peaceful thing I think I've felt outside of riding a motorcycle. Like, it was just totally different than I ever thought, And I think that's what we do a lot of times is we go, oh, that's going to be chaotic. Oh, man, I got to stay away from that. But it's really going, no, trust yourself in that. What are you pre-deciding going into that, and go do that. Go execute and execute at a really high level.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote I have behind me. It goes, your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. And I love that. And, you remind me of the quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that's how you learn and grow, man, is you just keep taking the shots. And the failures are not inherently bad. I think that was something that has helped me grow a lot, is like, I'm going to fail a ton and I'm going to keep failing, but the failures are information, and I would rather fail and grab the information and move forward. It's like, what are the things that you need to do today to gather more information so you can go execute at a higher level tomorrow? And I'm constantly asking myself, what's the future Dan going to be wanting me to do? You know, like you wake up and you don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to eat the meal. You don't want to get in the cold plunge. You don't want to go on the run. You don't want to do these things. You don't want to, whatever it is. It's like, but what is the future Dan? Is he going to be proud of that if you do that thing? And 9 times out of 10, it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, then do it. Like, forget the feeling right now. And it's not that feelings don't matter. It's that, is this feeling producing my best? And if it's not, put it in check and keep taking action.
I love that. And failure isn't the end, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
What's your take on failure?
You know, I think my take is that, again, it's information. I try to not add value to things that don't need value. You know what I mean? I think that we so often, even with feelings, it's like, oh, this is a good feeling or this is a bad feeling. It's like, no, is it producing my best or is it not? With failure, for me, it's as much as possible trying to put it in the box of, you know, it's information at the end of the day. Yes, some failures are like, hey, I'm proud of that. And some failures, it's like, oh God, man, I got to look in the mirror again. That was a gut check, you know, but when you really try to get yourself to a place of what's the information I can take from it and how do I use it to keep taking actions moving forward? Like, now you're leveraging it for your benefit. And I think that's a big thing that I see in athletics, in business, in life in general. Like, it's goes beyond the fact that people just don't like to fail. They take that failure as, now this is inherently who I am, or I just don't like this feeling of failure that it's like creating within me, and they let that dictate how they show up. And so, you know, there's definitely times where the failures shift how I show up, but I try to process through them quickly and get back to a place of like, no, how do you want to show up, and how do you want to move forward, you know? And I think for me, again, failure is like, it's necessary. It's like, it's not siloed. It's actually the other side of the coin for growth and development and being at your best.
That's a great way to put it. It's about like it's not about having that perfect start. It's about like starting and adjusting along the way. And like you're saying, like all the failures you have, you put it in your backpack and you take it out. Like, oh, I've learned this already. I know what to do now.
Yep. Well, and I think when you break it down into like where confidence, a piece of confidence is that not only are you achieving things, that's what we like to focus on. Oh, look at all that I did, man. Oh my gosh, my confidence. But for me, confidence is, look at all the things I screwed up, I messed up, I failed at, but I pulled the lesson from it. I pulled something from it and used it for my benefit. That's where I think that confidence comes from, because I've not just checked all the boxes, I've moved all the rocks, I've lifted up this, I've tripped over that, I've done all these things. Like, you're not going to tell me something that I don't know about myself, because I've gone to those dark spaces and I've put myself so far out there and have felt the gut punch and looked into the black abyss and am still going, all right, what's the next right move? You know what I mean? And when you do that over and over and over again, and I know I got another 50, 60 years of this, you know, when you do that, it's like, okay, do I really care what you think about me? No, man, I care about what I think about myself. I care about how I show up every day. I care about where I'm trying to go. I care about how I'm leading the people that I love and care about. You know what I mean? And there's definitely times where that person hits you upside the head and you're like, whoa, that hit me different. Why did I care all of a sudden? You know what I mean? But over time of you continuing to do that, like, that's how you show up with more confidence.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's not all about talent. It's about effort. And but why do some people never reach their full potential?
Yeah. For me, just in my own experience, that 16 to 23, 24, 25, I just cared more about other people's opinions. I allowed other people to dictate how I showed up. I allowed other people to put the value on who I was and what I was capable of. You know, I think that's a really, really, really big piece of it. I think the other piece is that people don't quiet themselves down, man. Like, they don't want to be by themselves. One of the things that I enjoyed the most, that I found really helped me figure out who I am and who I really wanted to be, was, you know, being in the woods, you know, is one thing, but also motorcycles. I mean, I rode motorcycles, and there's nothing better than getting on a motorcycle for 2.5 hours and being by yourself and just like feeling the wind in your face, and like you're in your own mind figuring stuff out, man. And most people don't want to do that. Most people don't. If you ask the average person, you know, hey man, do you want, like, would you feel comfortable sitting with your own thoughts? No, man, I don't want to do that. And for me, it's like, I have to. Like, I got to figure that out, because if I'm not willing to sit with my own thoughts, nobody's going to want to sit with me. I got, I got to figure that piece out. I got to dig into that and figure out who I am and align some actions there. If I want to do anything of substance in life, so I think that's a big reason, the caring more about other people, which sounds so cliche, but it's like every step that you take, there's so many inputs, at any given time. Research is they've tried to, like, put data to it, but essentially they say that cognitively you're bringing in 11 million bits of data at any given moment, right? But you can only process through about 10 pieces of data out of that 11 million, right? And so when you think of that, even the the 11 million is shifting all the time, depending on where you put your focus, who you're around, what you're doing, whether you're on your computer, your phone, a book, like those 11 million data pieces are constant. But then the 10 that you're even paying attention to shifts all the time too. And so if you don't become disciplined in creating some boundaries of saying, man, I just don't care about these, I'm not even going to give that space and I'm going to protect my focus, then you're going to be ran ragged. You're going to be the buoy in the middle of the lake with no anchor, and you're not going to stand for anything. You're going to get rocked back and forth, especially when the waters are rough, and I think that's a big piece of why people don't have that.
That makes so much sense. And most of limits we have are ones that we put on ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, or we allow people to put them on us, but yeah, 100%. Even, go back to the plane thing, jumping out of that plane. I don't know where that fear of falling out. I mean, obviously a plane's a pretty significant plane, but I don't know where that fear, like some people don't have that fear. I don't know where that fear came from. It came from somewhere, but I faced it. You know what I mean? I think that's the other thing that people get so hung up on, of like, where does it come from? Where is this thing at? It's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you can conquer it. Just go conquer it. Who cares if it came from where it came from? Just go get over. Like, not, I don't want to sound insensitive, but like, go chase it down. I often, when I'm talking with athletes and even like business owners, I challenge them and say, like, what's the thing that scares you? And then try to see past that, because that's the thing you ultimately desire. And so if you can, fear at the end of the day for me is free focus. So there's actually a physiological shift and a psychological shift that when you get scared, you zoom in on whatever you think is a threat. And so if I can use that as free focus and go, what's the threat? Okay, deep breath, what's behind it that I deeply desire? Now, what are the action steps to move through it? Now I'm leveraging my physiology and psychology to build momentum and discipline in my life, instead of going, man, I just don't feel like it today. You know what I mean? And I start chasing some of those things down that I are fearful of, realizing like the fear is more in my mind than anything. And then going, what's really behind it? And for me, a big through line has been, I wanted to be free. I lived, 15, 16 till I'm 25, feeling almost compartmentalized by me allowing people to put me in this. Right. And so now I'm like, man, I'm doing everything I can to just be free of it, and I'm just going to keep chasing it down.
Yeah, it's not about avoiding fear. It's about pushing through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people avoid that, again, because they get that feeling, and then the feeling starts and goes, I don't know about this, and it's not a recognizable feeling because they don't feel it enough. They don't lean into it enough. And then it goes to, okay, but I'm going to solve this problem. And if I do this, what are they going to think? What is that going to happen? What about this? What am I going to think about myself? Like, that's a big thing. What are you going to think about yourself? Like, you starting this podcast. If you would have been like, oh, what if people don't like it? Oh my gosh, I don't know. What about the name? What about this? What about, and you start doing, then you're stuck over analyzing everything and you never take an action. And then we're never on this call today. You know what I mean? But because you said, no, man, I'm just going to keep doing this. And I'm sure there's been times where you're like, oh, I don't know. But the doubt, in spite of the doubt, you keep taking action, is why you keep getting on podcasts and bringing guests on and having great conversations and connecting with people.
Yeah, I'm chasing after my dreams because my dreams won't chase me. And like, I'm after something that's much bigger than most people are even realizing. Like, I'm going after, podcast 100, and podcast 100, 1% of podcasts only get to achieve that. and most people don't understand the work, the homework that has to go into it.
Yeah.
And like I have great gratitude towards you and every one of my guests that hops on and shares their journey and their stories and their experiences. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, podcast 100, what does that mean to you? Like at the end of the day, when you hit that, right? What does that mean to you? Because I can see as soon as you start talking about it, you're like, oh yeah, man, yeah.
So I like to say that, to be the top 1%, you have to do what the 99% isn't willing to do. So that's
Absolutely,
what it
man.
means to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're taking action to be uncommon.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir.
And I think that right there is the struggle. Is that so many of us, it's inherent. We're talking about physiology of people, we want to belong. We want to be connected, right? And where we miss all the time is the connection with yourself. Like you chasing that down and hitting 100 and being able to say, yes, I did that. And also so much gratitude to everybody that jumped on. And I can't wait for all the other people. And you don't even know the impact you've had with the people that you've influenced that you'll never even meet. You might never know, but you've had that influence in this world because you've aligned and connected with yourself and said, I don't care if I don't belong in this little group or that little group or these people because I'm aligned with myself. Like there's a deep connection and cohesion and alignment with myself. And so I have peace that every action that I'm taking is leading me to where I want to go because it's much bigger than what other people see. And that's okay. Like that's the thing that most people are scared of. And you at first when you start feeling that, you check it and you're like, I don't know, man. Like, oh man, I know I've had some crazy conversations where I'm like, dude, I want this out of life and doing this, and people go, and there's people that like don't talk to me anymore, and I'm like, wait, is there something wrong with me? And it's like, no, I'm not like you, and that's no harm, no foul. You know what I mean? And I just encourage you, keep chasing it down, man. And every time you think it's like, hey man, I'm doing pretty good. It's like, all right, time to think even bigger. Time to like, okay, 100, great. What does that mean? Where are we going next? And you just keep broadening the horizons.
And I love to say also, it's about the journey, not the destination, but the personal development throughout the journey.
Yeah. Do you like yourself more now than you did when you started it?
150%. Like
Yeah.
there's not a percentage. Yes, I mean 100%.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? And it's probably, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably one of the harder things you've done in life.
Yes, most definitely.
And that's the
Most
weird
definitely.
thing, man. It's like, yeah, this was one of the more challenging discipline, like got me out of my comfort zone in so many different ways. But yet, I love myself, man. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like that's the feeling when I say greatness is within. It's that when you look in the mirror, that sense of like, yes, man, I'm that guy. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be, a lot of people go, oh man, I got to be that guy in basketball or football. No, it doesn't have to be, man. There's all American moms and dads and business owners and teachers and whatever. Like it's people that are like, I am fulfilled, connected, and bringing everything I have to what I'm doing, and that's where, for me, my company's name is called Meraki Performance. And Meraki is a Greek word, which there's really no English translation for. And it means to do something with such love, focus, and intention that you leave a piece of yourself behind, right? And when you really allow yourself to lean into that, that's what most people, if you get 500 people in a room and you say, who wants to leave a place better than what they found it, be a better version of themselves, and leave a legacy? 99.9% of people are standing up. And the only one, like 0.001% that isn't, is the one person that's going, I'm just not going, like, I just want to be resistant. You know what I mean? But deep down, they want to as well. You know what I mean? We all have that. And that's what I think greatness is when you lean into that and you acknowledge that and you don't get scared of it. You actually lean into it and you go, let's do this thing. And you just see where it takes you.
No, that's so powerful. And growth only happens when we push through, when we push past what feels safe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, those feelings and those thoughts, to move to the other side and get into that unknown and go, hey man, I'm here. Like I'm that guy. I can do this thing, or even to get to that place and go, man, who I was is not going to serve me well moving forward. So what is it within me that needs to shift and change and adjust to keep moving on the path? And I've faced that tons of times where it's like, all right, man, that Dan, like that's not going to work for you anymore, man. Like, what are you going to do differently? You know what I mean? And for me, it's taking that ownership of, in any given time and any given space in any given situation, I have influence over that. And like, maybe not entirely, but I have a piece of influence over that. So how do I keep developing and growing to leverage that influence to its maximum capability? And so many people don't want to go into that unknown to, one, trust themselves, but also, two, to test themselves and go, hey, maybe there's things I need to do differently. Maybe this thing doesn't serve me as well, or maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. So I gotta get back down to work, and I need to execute better on these things, or gain strength in these things. Like that's a tough place to be. But again, that's where it happens, man. That's where greatness happens in my mind.
That's a great way to look at it. And small changes can make a huge difference over time. What's a daily habit that helps you build discipline?
Yeah. I think one of the things that helped me the most was reading business books and different things. It was like, everybody wakes up early, and again, going back to my grandfather, he said, like, the early bird gets the worm, get up in the morning. He was always somebody that got up really early in the morning. And so I just kind of blindly started following that. But what I found was that solitude for the first hour and a half was like so beneficial for me. And I've adjusted. Like, at first, in my 20s, it was just getting up and drinking a cup of coffee and letting my mind and things settle. And now it's more of a routine where I get up, I do some things. Like, I'll get up, I'll drink a glass of water or two. I try to do 50 push-ups, 50 squats. Like, I just get my body moving. I wait an hour before I drink coffee. I might journal a little bit. And then within, that first hour and 15 minutes, like, I'm activated. And now I'm like, all right, what are we doing for the day? And so I'm looking at my calendar. I'm setting up, what are the tasks I'm trying to knock out today? If I didn't already the night before, when am I going to the gym? Like, I have a lot of these things and routines set up. Part of it is the pre-decision thing. I don't have to think, hey man, do I want to get out of bed today, or do I want to do this thing? It's like, once I execute on that routine and my brain knows it's a pattern and we just do it, you get going and you get far enough in it. It's like, okay, the rest of the day is just, let's do it. One thing I started doing a while ago was cold plunging and cold showers. I actually, ironically enough, started taking cold showers like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, for the purpose of, how do I get that like shock feeling and breathe through it and like build that capacity to be in the moment and to navigate it well and clear my mind. And then it became more and more mainstream as I researched it more. And it's like, oh, there's so many health benefits. And I'm like, sweet. It's like, it's a multiplication factor. So I do that a lot too. Those are just some of the disciplines and habits. I mean, I work out. I love working out in the gym. Something that I've picked up recently is jujitsu. I know that's become more and more mainstream, and I've had a blast doing that. I mean, there's just something about being in really uncomfortable positions and keeping your composure to find your next way out. It's fascinating. And, I come home when I go to those classes, and I come home, my wife's like, there's something wrong with you. Cause I'm like, first time I had a huge goose egg, somebody kneed me in the face, and I'm just smiling from ear to ear. I'm like, I don't know, man, there's just something about it. I love this, so those have been definitely beneficial to me.
Wow, that's actually very powerful, and that's one of those key things you have to take away from this conversation to the listeners. And success isn't built on big wins. It's about it's built on the small ones, the daily actions.
Yeah, and I think it's also taking time to reflect and deciding where you're really going to put value. Don't just put value in places that people tell you to. Hey, everybody else thinks this is important, so I'm going to think this is important, right? It's like, it's putting value in the things that you truly believe are important, and then taking the time to reflect and go, hey, where were the wins? Hey, where were the big things? What do I value in that? And how do you celebrate that for a moment too? I think that, obviously you need to execute, you need to take action, but you need to also pause and review. And that's something that I've done a better job as of late. My wife and kids and I are about to go down to Southern Ohio and do some hiking over the weekend. And like I can feel my body slowing down a little bit and my mind slowing down a little bit. And like I'm looking forward to that time to reflect, because there's gonna be things that pop up in that time down there that I'm gonna be like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. And I think we don't do that. We don't give ourselves credit for some of those small wins that we know are valuable, but other people might not look at it that way. So we just go, whatever. And so I'm always trying to find those as well.
Yeah, success is the sum of small efforts. That's what I like to say. And can we circle back a little bit? Can you
Yeah.
tell the listeners that may not know what flow state is, what the definition of that is, and what it is, and how do you achieve it?
Yeah, so it's really it's like the optimal human state or experience, and it's where you're fully immersed mentally, physically within the task or the thing that you're doing, right? And so it's a place where I would say that it's like your physiology and your psychology are connected. There's consciousness, but you're not coaching yourself up. You're not going, wait, what should I say next, or what should I do next? Like you're just in it, right? And it's like it's this higher, I don't want to say vibration, right? But some people would say that like you're operating at this higher level, okay? And so there's a couple things that are really key characteristics to it, and one is that there's a clear goal. You know what your intent is. You know what you're deliberate on. You know what you should be executing on. Maybe even the reason why you're doing what you're doing. Okay. And then the other piece is that it's just manageable, meaning you have a skill set that is just slightly above what's required. You know what I mean? Like I just have that slight edge. So I'm really being challenged. Like I'm extremely challenged right now. This is a difficult challenge. I'm not just rolling off the couch and whatever. Like this is a good challenge, but I'm just above it where I'm not going, oh shoot, what? Right? And I think that's the interesting thing too, because you can, depending on where you put your focus, you can make any challengeable just manageable, or any challenge just manageable. That's my approach, right? I can, if I'm like this and I go, man, I just don't know about this challenge. This is so huge. I can always break that thing down into smaller and smaller parts, and it could be just the most micro thing of like, yep, that's next. And then you start building actions from there, right? And so that it has to be just manageable. And then the final thing is that there's feedback. That's the other big thing, is that I'm receiving constant feedback from my environment, from my teammates, from the activity of whatever I'm doing, that, hey, I'm on the right track. I'm going in the right direction. You know what I mean? And when you're doing that and you're fully immersed in that, is where, people would say that's the flow state. That's being, another term for it is in the zone. And a lot of people on the surface go, oh yeah, it's only in athletics. No, man. Like it's in conversations, it's in reading, it's in playing music, it's in, some people love driving and getting into that place where all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I'm at my destination. What happened? And sometimes it's, you got to be careful, because sometimes it's autopilot. And so that's not really flow state. That's just you on autopilot. But sometimes like you're jamming to music and you're in it, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that hour just passed by quickly. That would be fully immersed in that moment. And so, yeah, I think there's deliberate things that you can do to get and activate that. But I think on the flip side, in order to increase your skill and capacity, you have to engage in deliberate practice too. Like you have to constantly stress yourself out appropriately and develop the skill so that you keep increasing that, so that you can keep activating more and more of that flow state. You do what you can to be in that flow state as much as possible, I would say, especially in athletics, but you're not going to get it all the time. You know what I mean? And you're probably in a given season going to hit that 20% of the time and love it and be in it, right? And reflect back on it and see what the patterns were and can you mimic that. But more than likely, you're going to hit it for spurts and moments in games or competitions or in different things, and then you're going to have to battle back into it. And that's where you have to understand. You have to have the cognitive skills and the mental skills and the toughness to go, all right, deep breath. Now what's the next right thing? Here's where my focus is, and get yourself moving again.
That's a great takeaway. And I've been in the flow state a lot through I played basketball,
Yep.
I've done track and field, and the bigger the event, the more of the flow state I get into. It's shocking as it is. And then I even achieve it all the time with my podcast.
Oh yeah.
The conversations like you were just saying. And like people out there, if you've never had some type of flow state or if you never achieved anything like that, I'm telling you the truth, it's something that everyone should strive for to try to have.
Yep. Well, I would even take it a step further too and just say it is the greatest place for you to experience restoration for mental health. And that's where I think, obviously not to go down a rabbit hole because I'm not a clinical psychologist, right? But when you are fully immersed in the moment, in whatever the activity is, like when you leave that activity, there's a restoration that takes place. There's a fulfillment in a energy that is building. You know what I mean? And I think and I know it's not even think, like I know when you are disciplined to create boundaries and routines and things that help you get there, you experience it more often. You know what I mean? And you're more productive in that as well. Whether it's sports or work, you end up being more productive. But picking up your phone every 30 seconds to check this, to check that, like a discipline that I have is I rarely check emails and respond emails on my phone. I have email on my phone. It doesn't push notify. I don't have any push notifications on my phone. My phone is never even on ring. The only time I pick up my phone is when I intentionally want to look at it to protect my focus so that I can be engaged in conversations. I can be in that moment. You know what I mean? But I think that's a big thing for that restoration in the mental health. You know what I mean? And then even, a thought that I had as you were saying that was even the conversation, as you said, some of these podcasts I get into it where all of a sudden you look down and you're like, oh, we've been talking for an hour, It's in that dialogue, it's the questions, it's the back and forth, but it's even as I'm talking, you're head nodding. And as you're talking, I'm head nodding, right? There's the feedback of like, oh, I'm tracking with them. Like we're on the same page here, And I think that we just miss over that because there's, again, so many inputs that we don't pause to really go, how do I stay rooted in this moment? And how do I be just present here?
No, with all your years of experience, I want to ask you this one. What's your take on people that say they don't have time for growth?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I think that, it's a great question because I've never been asked that directly like that. But I would say if somebody was sitting in front of me and said, man, I just don't have time for it. You know what I mean? I think I would probably lean back to more of, well, what do you have time for? Like, let's look at that. Let's write those things down. Right. And see what's really important to you. And then I would try to connect the dots and say, well, if your family is most important to you or your kids or your work, how could growth impact that to be better? And in what ways could you grow? Right. And so like knowing that, again, it's the other side of the coin. If I want to be the best I can be as an employer or a business owner and things like that, I have to lean in and create and prioritize space to actually develop new skills or develop and increase capacity to actually execute the skills that I do have. You know what I mean? And so I think it's more of a priority thing. And I'm a big person too that, a lot of people look at leveraging time and I think, yes, it's really important, but you could kind of throw the idea of time out the window if you learn how to leverage your focus. If you just wake up in the morning and say, what are the most important things to me? And how do I dedicate focus to that? And how do I keep increasing that focus? And how do I keep developing that focus? And how do I keep doing the things and executing? And I'm like, man, if you want to be the guy or the girl that walks in a room and people go, holy cow, right? Learn how to conquer your focus. Learn how to be the person that walks into a room, knows what you want, knows who you are, knows what you're there for, knows the reason why you are who you are, right? And just be present. Those are the people that you go, holy cow, there's something different about them, and then it's not about the time and it's not about, you know what I mean? It's all about how are you leveraging and wielding your focus.
That's a game changer, and that's a great takeaway. And I know so many people battle with self doubt. Also, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone struggling with self doubt?
Hug it, man. Hug it and lean into it. And figure out why you feel that way. What's the thought behind it? Why do you have the self doubt? What is it about that thing or that person or whatever was brought up that has that little bit of doubt? I have doubt all the time, man. Like I just actually gave a talk to a bunch of business leaders yesterday where that was like I was like, guys, I stand up here and you guys look at me like I'm this supreme confidence and that there's no cracks. Like there's tons of cracks, man. I just lean into them and figure them out and why are they there and let's keep rolling. And even if I can't figure out why they're there, I just keep going, all right, how do we move past them? You know what I mean? And I lean into the doubts and go, why is that? And I try to be as honest as possible. Again, we all want to present ourselves the best way possible. You know what I mean? But you have to lean into those doubts and you have to be able to go, why, like, let's uncover that. Let's peel into that. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I have tons of doubts and it's cool because when you lean into those and you recognize those, you go, oh, I'm really not as good at that thing as I thought. Okay. Who can help me? Where's the information? What do I need to do? How do I need to set this up? You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think you got to lean into them. Don't shy away from them because of the feelings that it brings up, right? Don't listen to that. Lean into them and go, what is it about that I got to dive into or I need to develop past and start chasing that down?
Now, what are some of the most common struggles like students share with you?
Yeah, more than anything, it's the focus piece. You know, it's where they put their focus and attention. I think for a lot of them, both at the high school and college level, a lot of it is that they rarely slow down to just be with themselves and figure out what they truly want. So much of it is dictated of like how other people think they should show up. You know, a lot of it is dictated of, yeah, like what, how how do I show up in this moment and what do other people think about that? It's not even how I show up. It's like what do other people think about me? And that actually dictates more of how they show up. It's more of again how they presenting themselves. And am I presenting myself in a light where people are gonna like me or not? I find that is one of the most challenging things. And I think it comes down to focus a lot of times. Like their focus just shifts so quickly based on don't like that feeling, boom, I'm on to the next thing, you know? So that's been probably one of the things that more than anything I've leaned into in the last 2 years of a lot of the work that I've done, especially at the college and high school level.
Yeah, why do you think young people struggle with self-belief? Is it the social media? Is it they're getting bullied? Is what is it?
Yeah, I think that I think there's more than one factor. It's hard to just. I think it's almost not not conducive and not really a great approach to say it's this one thing. You know what I mean? I think there's a convergence of things. Again, to go back to an earlier point, 11 million data points at any given time. You know, like I was at a school and they did a tornado drill, right? And I was, you know, out in the hallway with some kids and they're like pulling Snapchat up and they're looking at Snapchat and they're doing the Snapchat and I'm like, would you guys really do this in a tornado? Like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? And they're constantly and it's like, holy cow, man! Like that's how they're connecting, right? And that's how they're engaging. And I think that draws their attention and focus. Like anytime they're bored, here's a great example I use all the time. You're driving around, right? You come up to a stoplight, okay, and you look across, and there's other people stopped. 9 times out of 10, what you'll see is people immediately get on their phone. They don't like the feeling of being bored. And so the first thing they do is go, all right, where do I put my attention? Where do I put my focus? I got to shift this, right? And so over time, they've created this pattern of, oh, don't feel comfortable? Focus shift. What do I need to focus on? What do I need to focus on? And they do that, and that becomes a pattern. You know what I mean? And so they just shift this focus a lot. And I think social media, absolutely. I think that's a big piece. I think, and this might be an unpopular belief, but I also think that when you look at society, and not that I'm like an expert in this, but when you really just step back and you look at society, like people aren't connected in community as much anymore. You have families that are split up more than anything. Whether you believe in church or not, that's no longer a community hub that people come together in. You know what I mean? So like these core places, even schools, that people came together and there was an attachment, there was a connection, there was a belonging, a sense of belonging that's really no longer there. And maybe in some places it definitely is, but it's deeply, deeply tarnished. Even when you look at athletic teams, it's rare to find that athletic team that is truly coming together and really like creating that deep web and the fabric and connection, that there are people within the team that are more about the team than they are individuals. Because we know that if I'm about me, then I get the next opportunity and I get the recognition and I get these things. And that's such a hard thing to battle, because for a lot of people, including us, that's what we're taught, right? And like, even for you, like example, podcasting, it'd be really easy to go, I mean, I hit 100 and this guy sucks over here. He's terrible with his podcast. It's so easy to do that. And for me, I think that's a cowardice approach. Like, we need to be like, yo, dude, Matthew's got 100 episode on his podcast and he's getting better and better. Yo, check this guy out. Check out what he's doing. Like, let's keep cheering him on. Like, that's the approach and we don't have that anymore. It's really, really, really rare to find. And you have to fight the grain to some degree of what we've been taught in society to actually do that. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big piece too, because if I'm always out to cut other people down and I'm trying to be the best podcast I can be, even in my industry, I want to lift other people up. There's not enough people talking about what I'm talking about, and helping student athletes and business owners do what they do. There's not enough people. And so I don't want to cut people down. People are going to have different approaches than me. They're going to have different methodologies than me that are still going to be based on some research and stuff. I want to lift them up. I want to learn from them. And if you can take something from me and make it better, because then I get to use it moving forward. Let's do it. You know, but so many people are like, nope, going to cut that guy down, going to do this. And what they unintentionally do is now that's the same judgment they have with themselves all the time too. Oh, because I'm cutting these people down. What they don't realize is now I'm going, oh, who's cutting me down? What's going on here? Right? And now your focus, again, to come back to that thought, it's shifting all the time. You know, and so I think that those are like some of the things that I see that I think are definitely factors that create the environment that we're in.
That really hit home for me. And a lot of people really need to hear that. I mean, what's your take? What can we do for the future generations to help them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is we need to help them figure out who they are, and then what are the steps that they can take to live that out? How does that look? You know what I mean? And so I think there's infinite combinations to success. And I think that so often, you know, even me, this is something that I've tried to shift is when I am coaching one-on-one, when I am working with a team, there is definitely things that I'm giving them and I'm being pretty explicit with. You know, like I'm saying, we need to execute these things. We need to take action on these. We need to set some things up. But then it's more of like guardrails and saying, now what's within your sphere or based on who you are, your authenticity that like you can take actions on. For example, like we need to set up a morning routine, Matthew. You know, like, you know, you get up and you take off in the day, you've been talking to me, you feel frantic, you feel unfocused. So, you know, and this is just an example, right? Matthew hasn't talked to me about this, but like, this is just an example. And so I'm saying, all right, man, like we need to set up some sort of routine. Now, you don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. You want to wake up at 8? Okay, wake up at 8, right? You don't want to go work out and lift, but you like going on walks. All right, cool. You don't want to journal, but you want to step outside and ground yourself. All right, great. You don't want to cold plunge, but you take a cold shower, at least put cold water on your face in the back of your neck. All right, cool. You know what I mean? Like, what is it within you that's authentic to you that aligns with you? You know what I mean? And being able to figure that out and navigate that, and not think it's a one size fit all, because it's not. It's not. The way that I go about things is not going to be the way that other people go about it. But there are ways that other people can go about it with the same underlying principles. You know what I mean? Same core principles that say, now how do you use that principle in your life to help you be better, help you be the best you can be. And so I really try to just create the space, especially with one-on-one coaching, to say, what is it for you? What really matters? What do you value? How does that show up? There's some kids in athletics that it's not about the scoring. It's not about all, it's about being a part of the team. It's about being the glue. It's about really seeing you chase down what you're great at. And to let the kid have the space for that and say, dude, that's great. That's awesome. Do that. And not have a parent that goes, yeah, but you need to get in there and you need to wise coach, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. That's not what drives them, right? Like, that's not what drives them. Being a part of the team and seeing others succeed and being a part of lifting those others up and being a role player and a glue, that's what allows them to be great. Let's help them be great.
That's so powerful. And that reminds me of a quote. The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, I think that sums it up. And I think that's the journey I'm on. My gift was not athletic greatness. My gift is not even really business greatness. I'm learning business. I'm not a great business owner, like I'm figuring it out. I think my greatness is that I see connections in things that others don't, and I see the greatness within other people. And I don't know, man. I have a gift to be able to speak it and to be able to talk about it and to be able to try to bring it out to others. And I think, yeah, like that's been my gift for whatever reason. I've been given that, and my purpose is to give it away, man.
Now, can you dive into why the mind and body need to be aligned?
Yeah, one of the things I would say right off the bat is that if you're listening right now, just reflect on times that you have felt most anxious or most even depressed or disconnected. And if you really sit in that for a minute, and you reflect, I think you'll come to the realization that it's a lot of times where your mind is not, one, in the present, and it's not where your feet are, or two, your mind is so much in the future and running ragged, but your body isn't keeping up, like it's not moving, right? Or it's so much in the past that your body, you just feel down and out, right? Like there's this disconnection. And I believe that that's where anxiety comes from. Like, and like anxiety, yes, is future thinking and trying to figure things out, but I can go to the future and be a little frantic or a little nervous about things, but not feel disconnected with my body and not feel disconnected and still feel like, hey, man, going to that future and trying to figure this thing out is not a bad thing. You know what I mean? But I think that, there's just a deep connection, and there's a lot of research on this. And again, I'm not a clinical psychologist where I can speak to all the research, but what I have found is that there is a deep connection between the two. And I have found that in my own life, where when I don't feel a certain way, one of the quickest ways to get that mood shifted, or to even shift my focus to something that helps me move forward, is by moving my body. I mean, there's this mind body connection. Anybody can try this. If you're down, out, your focus is on something that you're like nervous about, frantic. Again, I'll say nerves aren't necessarily bad, but you're like overwhelmed by this thing, right? Do 25 air squats. Focus on your breathing for 30 seconds, and then focus on something different than what you were just focusing on. Shift your focus. So many of us don't understand the fact, and this is real, that until you shift your body, until you shift your physiology, you cannot shift your focus. So if I'm focused and hyper focused on this thing, and I'm overwhelmed by this thing, if I don't move my body, it is extremely difficult for me to move my focus. I will continue to ruminate on that thing, focus on that thing, because I am in a place, in a physical state, where I'm trying to figure this problem out. I'm trying to figure this out. It's an unknown. What do I do? What do I do? But as soon as I move my body, it's almost like, I say a lever. There's not really levers in your brain, but it's almost like you shift gears, you downshift, and you go, okay, what's next? And now you can shift back in, focusing on that thing and moving in another direction, and there's a deep connection there, and I really try to do that a lot. I actually have a video course on this that I call the Core 4, where I dive into that more. And I help athletes begin to develop the habit and the pattern to step back, take a deep breath, to reset that nervous system, and then to lock in to what you can control, who you are, like the small actions that you need to execute on, especially in competition, and then you fully send it and you go. And I use the analogy of shifting a car or a motorcycle because it doesn't make sense to be at sixth gear and just downshift to one. Doesn't make sense, right? Just like it doesn't make sense to be at first gear and then shift up to six. Like you have to be able to pull that clutch in. You have to be able to breathe. You have to be able to shift up, add the gas. Like you got to be able to shift in and out. And that's a good metaphor that I have found to be able to help people shift their focus.
That is such a good point. And you don't have to be great to start. You just have to start to be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like lifting weights, and that has been the pushback. If I'm going to be transparent with the video courses, coaches like, well, I told my kids about it. Now, like, it doesn't work. It's like, okay, like you tell your kids, and even kids like, oh, I did it once. It's like, okay, if I went into the gym and I have never deadlifted in my life, and I just said, hey guys, I don't know how to do this, but here's 500 pounds. Watch this. Like you'd laugh at me. It wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is you have to rep it and you have to create the pattern and you have to do it. And the core four is more of a micro break. It's more of that micro reset where it might take 15 to 20 seconds where really or a macro break where really the micro break is like a deep breath and then I lock back in. And the cool thing is once you rep this and it becomes a pattern and you recognize when you're focused on the wrong thing or you have that, you can go and move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? But you have to develop those patterns. You have to put yourself in situations where you need to use that skill. That's the other thing. You can't just think about it and go, oh man, it'd be great to lift 500 pounds. Like, I can't wait to deadlift 500 pounds. I'm going to visualize, deadlifting 500 pounds. And then you go and do it and you're like, oh, it didn't work. No, you have to be in the situation and go to the gym and rep it over and over and over again and build up to that weight to do it.
No, that is so powerful. And what's one challenge you think everyone should try at least once?
Oh, that's great, man. This is something that I have really encouraged athletes to do. And for everybody listening, they're going to be like, this is crazy. But it's very hard to mimic that physiological response or even that psychological response, especially when you're competing or when a business deal falls through or when something happens, that like shock for a moment, that like, oh crap, what are we going to do here? And so what I challenge athletes to do and even business owners is the last couple minutes of your shower, turn it all the way to cold. Right. And do this, like make the pre-decision to do it for 5 days in a row, just 5 days in a row. And when you do this, you'll realize the first time you're going to be like, right? And you're trying to catch your breath. You're trying to breathe in through your nose. You're trying to slow things down. You're trying to calm yourself down. And then you try to use that because you're like, you have that response, you're breathing. Try to use that to focus you in on something. Focus you in on the skill you're trying to develop. Focus you in on, I talk a lot about identity statements. Like, who am I and how do I want to show up? What does that look like? I'm this, I'm that. How does that look like on the court? How does that look like walking into that corporate office? How does that look like going into that business deal? Like, zoom in on that, maybe even visualize that, right? And use that cold water to channel that, right? To force that situation where you're forcing your focus into that, right? And what you'll find after 5 days is that when you get that initial shock, you've taught yourself and you developed a skill to calm your breathing down quicker and quicker. So the first day, it might take you 25, 30 seconds, 45 seconds to really calm your breathing down. But then by day 5, it might take 20 seconds. And now you've increased your capacity and you've gained the skill to really calm yourself down when you get that initial shock. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a great, here, both being in Michigan, cold weather, just go out in the cold weather, man. Go out in the cold weather. Take that cold walk and wear a hooded sweatshirt and allow yourself to get cold. Now, I'm not saying go sit out there for an hour, but go stand out there for 5 minutes. One of the things I do often, especially in the winter when I'm struggling to wake up, right? I let the dog out. I walk out with the dog and I'm out there in bare feet and I got a hooded sweatshirt on and pants and I'm staying out there and it's cold, but I'm letting the cold air just wake me up and I'm using that to focus in. All right, what are we executing on today? Well, how you want to show up? What are we going to do? You know what I mean? And then I go back inside. And so just like somewhat shocking yourself in those ways, I think is vastly beneficial. And there's the other thing is that you can research it. There's tons of health benefits to it as well. So it's more than just mental.
That's very good advice. And that can help. That can change someone's life, out there. It can, it's It's just very good advice. I mean, I do it personally, and a lot of people, they don't take the challenge. They don't take the next step. And like you were just saying, it's something simple, but something that can be so powerful at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it's the discipline to keep doing it. You know what I mean? And doing it over and over and over again. It's I go to the idea of character even. A lot of people take the approach of like, you either embody it or you don't. You have it or you don't, right? We say often this guy just doesn't have character. You know what I mean? No, they have character. They're just focusing and taking actions on things that you don't put value in or that don't necessarily align with you or your culture or what you're doing. And so as a leader or even an athlete, our job is to focus on the things that are in alignment and matter. You know what I mean? And so, like, if I want to be disciplined, then I have to put my focus on things that I need to do every single day to produce discipline in my life. And then over time, I wake up and I go, man, I'm disciplined. I've become more disciplined. That's the character I embody now. And it's like, okay, now how do I keep doing that at a deeper and deeper level? You know what I mean? How do I keep increasing my capacity to be disciplined within different circumstances? And like I think that's a big piece to just keep going and keep doing that.
Now, what's your take? Is discipline more powerful than mindset?
Yeah. I mean, I think that discipline to a large degree is a part of mindset. You know what I mean? Because discipline to me is that it goes back to the idea of focus, that I'm going to focus on either A, I'm going to leverage my focus of if I do the thing, what does it produce? So I'm going to stay focused on what does it produce? Okay. Or B, it's the focus of this is the action that I need to take, like I need to do. Right. I'm going to focus specifically on that action and taking and executing on that. You know what I mean? So I think, mindset being attitudes and beliefs, it's the attitude that discipline matters and the belief that discipline matters, right? It's the attitude and the focus that, I am somebody that embodies discipline and I'm going to do these things. And so I think they really feed into each other. I don't know if it's necessarily like one or the other. I see them deeply connected, if not like one and the same.
That's very good advice. And I appreciate you being on the show. And the show is called Every Day is Friday. And Friday has a special energy, whether it's freedom, excitement, or just feeling of accomplishment after a long week. I want to hear from you. What does Friday mean to you?
Yeah. I think Friday, man, Friday for me is the day that I'm most productive. It's the day when most people say, yeah, it's Friday. I'm going to take a half day off. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to take a 3-day weekend. I'm going to do that. And don't get me wrong, there's times you need to do that, right? Like rest is a part of performance. It's on the backside of performance. But for me, those are the days that I leave people behind. It's like, yo, while you're kicking it because every single Friday you try to take off, that's the day that I'm on fumes a lot of times, but I'm still going because fumes will get me to the next exit. Fumes will get me to the next on ramp. Fumes will keep going. And so I just keep going. You know what I mean? So Fridays for me, I enjoy deeply. And yeah, like it's one more day for me to execute and show up how I want to show up.
That's powerful. I resonate with that. And this is your chance to leave the listeners with something powerful. Is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah, man, I would just say that, greatness at the end of the day comes when you strive to uncover that purpose, right? And I know why and purpose can be so big, but it doesn't have to be this like existential giant thing. It's got to be what matters to you, And so, not only uncovering that purpose, but then being like unrelenting and relentless in taking action towards that purpose and being unapologetically yourself in the pursuit. You know what I mean? And so I would just encourage people, you don't have to figure it out. We're all figuring it out. I hope one day I get to I'm sure like I'm going to be on my deathbed one day and I'm going to be like, hey, I did a lot of things, but there's so many things unknown, But I think that's the journey, as you talked about. It's that process. It's that. And so just take the next step. What's the step for you today? What's the step for you today? And maybe it's just saying greatness is within and writing that on something and reminding yourself of that every single day and saying over and over and over again, that's who I am. It's greatness. It's greatness. It's greatness. And then being able to say, what's the action I need to take in alignment with that today?
You only get so many summers in a lifetime. Go chase your dreams because your dreams will not chase you. And all your information will be in the description down below. But I want to make sure that people know where to find you and where can people follow and support your work.
Yeah, just about every social media like platform, we're at Meraki Perform, Meraki Perform. And then I just started a YouTube. I think it's Real Dan Hunt or Real D Hunt on YouTube. If you do Dan Hunt, it should pop up. But that's a cool way that I have a newsletter right now going out every week. I'm breaking down different questions that people are asking me and just sending out a 6 to 10 minute video, breaking it down, giving some actionable steps for athletes to take, for corporate athletes to take, for business leaders to take, for even coaches to process through with their team. And so if you like that, that's free. You can check that out as well and get that every week.
Dan, I know a lot of the listeners got a lot of value out of this. It's been an amazing conversation. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for sharing your stories and experiences.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. It's been great.
Yes, and then to the listeners, stay tuned for more amazing stories on Every Day is Friday Podcast 365. If you enjoyed this, make sure you follow, share, and keep Every Day is Friday mindset going. Until next time, stay inspired and make every day feel like Friday, everybody. Until next time.